Ryan Jarrell here for Fight Bananas, and you can see my next guest back in action at UFC Vegas 101 on January the 11th when he takes on Thiago Moises, and of course it is Trey Ogden on the show. Trey, how's it going?
Good, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, always great to talk to you. First, I know we talked about it a little bit before we actually went live here, but Thanksgiving was just a couple days ago now. You're right in the middle of fight camp. How difficult is that, or was it hard for you to kind of stay away from all the good food while you're getting ready for a fight?
It's not so bad. I've been training a lot. I've been dieting pretty hard. I keep myself in a calorie deficit in fight camp just naturally. So, being 6, 7 weeks out, I didn't have to be too strict. But Christmas will be a different story. I'll have to be real tight on Christmas, but that's okay. I've accepted what I'm doing. I just embrace it with the diet and the making weight and the hard training and being sore and being banged up. I've been fighting a long time, so I feel like I'm at a place of like peak maturity with the whole process, and I get something beautiful out of all of it. And so it's pretty easy for me to lock into the diet and just do it. And I feel so much better when I do. It makes such a big difference in my life.
I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you before, but I feel like you have one of the more impressive physiques in the weight class. Like,
Thank you.
like muscle ratio. Like, do you know like what your BMI is and all that?
I don't know what any of that is. I used to be a personal trainer like a long, long time ago. Um, and I was always pretty lean, 6, 7%. But I don't know. I'm not really as interested in that stuff as I used to be. I do very few strength and conditioning things that can be measured, and I kind of do that on purpose, and tracked. So like I don't have a lot to go on other than how I feel in live round. So everything I do is to support how I feel in live round. My basis on my fitness is how much what kind of a pace I can hold in my live rounds and how many live rounds can I do a week at this pace and recover from. So no, but I appreciate the compliment. I've been training like really hard and really consistent for a really long time. My whole life, I've been interested in fitness and health outside of like martial arts as well, and diet and nutrition. I'm kind of a nerd with all that stuff naturally. So I just think it's consistency over a lot of years. This is my 15th year fighting. I've spent the vast majority of that time at fight camp volume, whether I had a fight or not. I don't take breaks if I don't have a fight. So I think that that's probably why I'm so lean. But I also intermittent fast almost every day. I do a lot, the bulk of my training fasted. I prefer that. I feel like I just feel better and have more energy. And so naturally, like I said, that keeps me burning a lot of fat and a lot of calories.
Yeah, I try to do a lot of intermittent fasting myself, and I can get to like 20 hours, sometimes like a full 24, and then I start getting real hangry. What's like
Yeah.
the normally the time frame for you where you're like, okay, I got to get something in me now?
Well, I'll typically eat, my eating window is usually somewhere like, let's just call it 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. every day. And so I do a lot of my training in the early day and morning, like not fasted. And as long as I'm drinking electrolytes, I can go a long time. You know, I don't, I don't necessarily prefer to like after some of my harder workouts, like I am hungry at lunch, but even at lunch, I don't like to smash too much food because then it makes me a little bit more lethargic for the evening classes and stuff. So, but fight week, we're not eating much at all, and making the weight, you're fasting a lot harder. And so the body, I've learned just that the body can be pushed a lot harder than people think it can. And I think that just understanding that as a mindset has helped me a lot because when I first started dieting, cutting weight, I was actually hypoglycemic, um, which means your blood sugar drops low instead of high. So like the opposite of a diabetic. And so like if I wasn't consuming carbohydrates, like more like 4 or 5 times a day, my blood sugar would start to drop. And I just had started to learn more about like fasting and the paleo diet. Like this is a long time ago, and that started to get really popular. And learning about high fat, low carb, or high fat, moderate carb, and that kind of things. And I slowly was able to, through changing my macronutrients, get completely to where I'm not hypoglycemic at all, and I'm pretty steady energy in a fasted state, even when burning calories for quite some time. Um, and I just think that that was something that like changed my whole life, was just understanding understanding the relationship between your body and consuming carbohydrates and the frequency at which you're consuming carbohydrates. And there's been many things in fighting and martial arts little bridges that I've had to cross that I didn't foresee that have become like amazing tools for my life and my health outside of fighting. Like another big one for me was when I figured out about like nasal breathing and habitual mouth breathing and the difference between the two and how that actually changes your body's and blood chemistry, and all kinds of stuff. You know, like before I started nasal breathing, like consciously, like all the time, as much as I could. Like if I don't need to breathe through my mouth, I don't. And when I figured that out, it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe about 4 years ago. I I used to always get sick, like respiratory infections, like all the time, like my whole life, like as a kid, even as a young adult, even in the fight game, I fought a lot of my fights sick. You know, I was sick in camp all the time. Since I started the nasal breathing, I basically don't get sick like at all, which is also something, incredible. And those are just two small examples, things that I've had to learn through adapting to this freaking all out warpath that I've been on that has like made my life like way better outside of fighting.
I'm curious, like with the nasal breathing versus the mouth breathing. Like when I mean, I just kind of breathe organically, right? It just happens. Like, what
hmm
do you focus on it? Like breathing out of your nose? Like, I don't understand the difference. Can you kind of elaborate?
Yeah, so like you talk a lot for a living doing this, right? And so I would notice that like if I was talking and then I stopped talking, I would continue to breathe through my mouth like habitually for like some time, or if I was stressed out and I was thinking about something, or maybe I was like talking to myself thinking about something, I would notice that I would stay in that pattern. I wouldn't return to nasal breathing for like some time, if that would make sense.
Okay.
And then even weird stuff like chewing food and breathing through your mouth, or taking a drink, like when people say they take a drink and it like makes them cough and it went down the wrong pipe. What happened is you were breathing through your mouth at the same time you were taking in food or water, and it got caught. And so just like even like little things like that, I started to notice. I read this book, and it just like really got me thinking about like nasal breathing. And then I would start to do like any exercise that I could do nasal breathing, I do. So like if I jump rope, I'm nasal breathing. If I'm doing like a lot of my strength and conditioning that does make me mouth breathe, I will get back to nasal breathing as quick as I can afterwards, like consciously. And so it's really about like the ratio of your body's carbon monoxide buildup, like how much your body can actually tolerate, how about how much carbon monoxide. So you have the urge to breathe to expel carbon, not intake oxygen. And so I was just breathing too much in general. I think I need more air, I need more air, when really and this is an all day every day thing. The more you can breathe less, then the higher tolerance your body gets for carbon buildup in the body. Like when you're going hard, right? You're building that lactic acid, and you're like that gassed out feeling is just your body is building carbon faster than you can expel it. But you can actually move that threshold of your bodies and move that when your body feels the urge to need to breathe. And so if you start paying attention to it, like you can see, and like when I start to like be out in public, I started like paying attention to like who's nasal breathing and who's mouth breathing. You'll see like a lot of people are mouth breathing, and I used to be one of them. I used to be a mouth breather. I used to just breathe habitually through my mouth and not realize it. And then getting back, to just like understanding basic like human chemistry with things like when you breathe through your nose, there's a process that happens that's different than when you breathe through your mouth. And so when you're nasal breathing, your body starts increasing the nitric oxide levels in your blood, which is like the thing that people take. And remember that old pre-workout NO explode? Like what that is trying to get nitric oxide into your blood. So you can actually do that naturally through nasal breathing. So even when you're exercising, like if I can in through the nose, out through the mouth, then I'll do that. If I have to in through the mouth, out through the mouth, I will, because that means we're going at a high pace. But as soon as I can get back to just nasal breathing, like if I'm doing just pure jujitsu, like a lot of my rounds are done nasal breathing now. Like I can get through
Okay.
entire rounds nasal breathing. When I first started, I felt like I was suffocating. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I got to breathe through my mouth.
That's super interesting, man. I'll tell you what, I'm
It is.
definitely going to be paying attention to that the rest of this week now, seeing to make sure that I'm a nasal breather. Let me ask you this, because I'm really excited about this fight with Thiago Moises. Both of you guys are veterans. You've been in there with some tough competition. What was your immediate thoughts when you first got the matchup and you knew this is your next opponent? Like, what did you think from a stylistic standpoint?
I liked it. It's exciting to me. Every single matchup I've gotten from the UFC, I could not have predicted. Like I just that person was just not on my radar at all. And every single matchup has been interesting to me and made sense to me at the time. And so the UFC matchmakers know what they're doing. They know how to put on cool fights and cool matchups. And so anyway, so it was just another one of those like, oh, I didn't see that coming. However, I knew who Thiago was because uh, when I was having a little run in LFA, Thiago was also having a run in LFA. And so way back in LFA days, I thought that I was going to fight. I mean, I was like having him on my radar when we were in LFA. I thought we would fight in LFA. And then we didn't. He got in the UFC before me. So even when I told my wife, like when I got the text, I told Aaron, they're talking Thiago Moises, and she knew exactly who he was, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for the matchup. He's somebody that I seen myself fighting for a long time. We're very similar fighters. And so I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and he just had a really tough fight with Ludwig Klein. Do you feel like Thiago is still like ascending as a fighter, or is he more at the back end of his career and maybe his skills are diminishing? I'm not saying that. I'm just wondering, like, when you see him now with so many fights under his belt, like, what do you think of him? Is he still like at his peak?
Well, I was going to say, you said it, not me, you know. um, I don't want to be harsh or critical of him, you know. He's been in the top 15. He's fought studs. He's beat some of them, but every like top tier fighter that he's fought has kind of beat him up. Um, so I feel like he's somebody who is going to be like a gatekeeper for the top 15, but I don't really know where his head is at, right? Like, is he okay? So, like, when that happens to a guy, does he accept that, like, hey, I'm probably not going to be a champion? I'm not going to be in top 15. It doesn't seem like I can break into that level. Or does it change him and he goes to get better? You know, does it motivate him? Does he be like, does it make him honest and brutally introspective? And does he just figure out how to get better because everybody can get better and he's young enough to get better, you know? So I'll be prepared for the best Thiago, but I don't think he's someone who thinks he's on a run right now, you know? And a lot of his wins lately have been guys that have stepped up on short notice to fight him, like debut guys. And then he looks really good again. And then he gets matched up with somebody in that upper echelon and they kind of beat him up. So, um, but I like, you know, I'll be like humble here is like I haven't fought the caliber of guys in the UFC that he's seen, but he hasn't beat them. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
so we'll see. You know, he has a good win over let's see, Michael Johnson, you know. Um he was kind of not doing so well, not looking so comfortable, and then he pulls an ankle lockout on Michael Johnson. You're probably not gonna ankle lock me, you know. But we'll see. And then he has a win on Bobby Green, split decision win. But you know, I felt like Bobby had a fight there that he should have won, and Bobby got undisciplined and a little loose, and then Moises got back in the fight. So you know, I definitely don't think that he's championship caliber, but it's a really good test for me. And I've won 3 in a row. I beat this guy. Maybe I'm looking at like I'm in the top 25 now. You know, so I think that this is a test for me to see like can I break into the next level, because I definitely think that Thiago is one step above the level that I've been fighting at in the UFC, but I don't think he's top tier.
All right. It really is an intriguing matchup, depending on which side of the coin you're on, if you're in your camp or with him. Like, I can't wait to see what happens come fight night. He does have 8 submission victories here in his career as a pro. Is that where he's most dangerous? I mean, we know how good you are on the ground. Like, do you have to watch out for him with his submission game a lot in this fight, or do you feel like you're going to be able to kind of stay in top control, overpower him?
Well, I think that I'll need to watch out for it and be aware of it for sure. Like, me and Tiago are actually very similar fighters. We both kick well, we both counter punch well, and we both grapple really well. Both jujitsu guys. So this is kind of like when I fought Kurt Holloway. Kurt's a very different matchup, but in the grappling, everyone was asking, "How do you think your guys' jujitsu is going to match up?" And Kurt was in interviews talking about how like he thinks that it's going to cancel out and be neutral. And I was in an interview saying I really doubt that, but we're going to find out. But I trained him very hard for. I trained and prepared to take him down and be in all kinds of like jujitsu situations that I would have to get through to position him. And then I took him down and positioned him like easy. And I was like, wow, that was like kind of eye opening, you know. So Tiago, I will go in with the same thing. I will do a very similar camp as I did with the Holloway. I will prepare myself to be in every conceivable jiu-jitsu position. I will prepare myself to be in a lot of competitive grappling scrambles while staying focused on still positioning him. I have a very hard will to break in the grappling. Like if I decide I'm going to position you, brother, I'm going to position you. Like I will not, like if we can be neutral for 14 minutes and I will not be deterred in trying to do so. But I need to prepare for that because I'm at a level of grappling right now that I'm trying to figure out like how good I am. I'm not really sure. I know I'm very good at grappling. I think my goal is to master jujitsu in my physical prime. I'm 35. I think my physical prime ends 37, 38. So now is my season to do that. But like, same reason why I did a IBJJF at black belt because I didn't compete in jujitsu at brown belt, but at black belt, I did an IBJJF Open in the adult division, no gi. I just wanted to check in. I didn't expect to win the tournament. I was just like, I just want to see how good. Like, I'm just trying to figure out like how good I am. And so I need to start to compete against like really good jujitsu guys to understand that. And I won that tournament, and I beat some pretty good guys. So same with Thiago is I don't know, but I'm very curious. Yeah, I don't know what he's going to feel like. I can see the video, I can see the patterns, I know the transitions. Like I understand his tendencies. I have some ideas about how I need to position my positions and certain transitions to avoid and certain transitions to make sure I double down on. But ultimately, I know he's won pans, so I know he's good. So it's like now I just won't know until I get a hold of him. We
Right.
just won't know until like I feel it. I got to feel it to know, but I'm prepared to do so. Someone asked me, one of my students asked me if like, hey, is this a situation where you just kind of avoid the grappling and try to strike? I was like, it's not what I'm here to do, brother. I'm coming straight. Thiago, I'm coming straight to you. I'm going to grab you. I'm going to throw you on your back and we're going to find out.
I love that. And yeah, I can't imagine that you would ever want to stay away from going to the ground with anybody because I know how confident you are when you do get down on the octagon floor. This is actually your fourth fight in a row, Trey, at the UFC Apex. Is that disappointing? Are you upset that you're back there?
I mean, whatever. I don't care. Sign the checks. Tell me where. I'll fight whatever arena. I would like to have the fans. They're fun. They're a lot of energy. The Apex is simple. I understand it really well. You have the PI there. I know the process. I know the building. I know everything about like fighting at the Apex. So there's a familiarity there that I don't mind. Um, I don't need the crowd, but I'd like the crowd. And I feel like, if I could be on some like bigger cards, then maybe I would get more of a fan base than what I've gotten. But maybe I need to be more exciting to get that. Like I can't complain. I understand that my fighting style isn't for like, especially like the casual fans. It's not their favorite fighting style, and but I think what will be exciting when we see how many people I can do it to in a row and the level of guy that I can do it to, then it'll start to build momentum. So I think that I just may be a slow burn in that regard. So
Okay.
overall though, like I think that when you're not in the UFC, these guys that are not in the UFC that want to be in the UFC, they'll give their left nut to be in the UFC, man. They'll do anything to be in the UFC. And then they get in the UFC and they cry about everything. The pay, the the Apex, the gloves, oh this glove, oh that glove, oh the new glove sucks. It's like everything. Bro, I have no complaints. I'm so honored and appreciative and grateful to have another fight in the UFC, to be healthy enough to do another fight camp, to be making a living doing martial arts. So I'll fight in the old glove, I'll fight in the new glove, I'll fight whoever, I'll fight wherever. So I'm here for it.
I love that answer. Yeah, and a win over Tiago, like you were saying, man, this really puts you in prime position to, really start climbing those rankings. I've been fortunate enough to interview you a couple times over the last year or so, and obviously you got a lot on your plate with your own fighting career, marathon MMA, all the students that you're helping get to the next level. Tell me, how much easier is that balance getting for you? Do you pretty much have it all dialed in week to week, or is it just kind of like, you get a short notice fight for one of your guys, and you got to pick up and go somewhere? Like, how's that balance?
Well, I'm grateful that I live a life where I can pick up and fly out on half a day's notice, you know what I mean, and go run a mission. So I'm getting more efficient at it and I'm getting more mentally durable with the just unrelenting pace of my current professional life. But I wouldn't say that it's getting easier because the plot is like still thickening. Like the gym's getting busier, the fight team's getting bigger, the the my fights are getting harder. So It's tough, man. It's tough. But when I'm in the trenches, I try just to be grateful and not let the fatigue get to me because like I said, I'm very honored to be able to be in the position that I'm in. You know, my gym is thriving, which is just a massive blessing to me and my family. The community at the gym is amazing. My fight team is all like really like high energy, high motivated guys that want to do this and are look up to me and trust me with their careers, and that's an honor to me. And I'm getting to coach in the UFC as a young coach. You know, I've only marathon's 4.5 years old, and I'm getting to coach some like elite level guys in the UFC, and that's just an honor to me and a privilege to me. And so everything I'm doing is just, you know, it's it's like I'm killing the game, but the game's killing me back, you know. But I'm so much better than being bored. I don't want I'm not looking for stability. I'm not looking for anything besides an adventure. You know, I don't want to be bored. So at least I'm not bored, you know.
Well, that's sure is the truth. I mean, you got Austin Spangler who fights just a couple days from now.
Yep,
Miles
Friday, yeah.
Friday, then Miles Johns on the 14th.
Tampa.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Tell me that matchup with Felipe Lima. How do you like that for Miles?
Real quick before I answer that, you know, like going into this weekend with Austin Spangler is outside of last weekend, I believe I coached like 7 consecutive weekends, which means like I'm working this full time thing. I'm training full time and I'm not having a weekend. So I worked like 60 straight days, you know,
Wow.
and then we go into this like big sale at the gym. We have every Thanksgiving week, and now I'm right back to back weekends coaching, and then we're in the holidays, and then I fight. And so uh, it's it's a lot, you know. But Miles Johns and Felipe Lima. Did you ask me what I think about the matchup or how it came about or what?
Yeah, no, just what you think of it. Obviously, he was supposed to fight Cody Garbrandt. I just interviewed Miles recently, and he likes this matchup even more because he's getting a young, hungry lion that has got a lot of hype, underneath of him. So, he's saying how much, he's actually more excited to fight him than Garbrandt, who's a little bit older. Like, do you like this fight for Miles? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, so like obviously a massive disappointment not to get the fight Cody Garbrandt because Miles was dialed and I've never felt so confident that one of my fighters was going to knock somebody out in my life as him knocking out Cody Garbrandt. And so that is disappointing. But on the flip side, we got to be on a bigger card, you know, the last part of the year in Tampa, an arena. And we get to fight a younger prospect, like you said. So the difference between Cody and Felipe to me is like Cody, we were going to get more credit from the fans for beating Cody, but we're going to get a lot more street credit for beating Felipe with the real community, you know, in the UFC. So I think it's a great opportunity for Miles. I believe in Miles wholeheartedly. I think that, you know, Felipe Lima has some impressive qualities, but he does not have the resume that Miles Jones has. Like, even if you look at Miles's career outside of the UFC, it's a lot denser than Felipe's career outside of the UFC. And then obviously Miles has fought a lot tougher guys in the UFC than Felipe, really, who has only fought one guy. And Miles is a different animal. And you know, Miles is a big guy, and at 135, it's a lot for him to get to that weight. And this fight gets to be at 145. So I think you're going to see like Miles Johns, like a thicker, even more athletic version with an even bigger like cardio threshold for sure. And I'm really excited for him, and I think that he's going to shine, man. I think that, and this is my first fight with Miles in an arena too, which I'm really excited about. You know, so it's going to be big energy, and I expect Miles to finish him. I think this is going to be like, I think Felipe is a good fighter and a good prospect, but I think that this is going to be a palpable step up for him. And I think he's going to notice right away that you're not going to just walk through Miles Johns. He's a scary, scary dude.
Yeah, he's a beast,
Yeah.
man. And
He's the scariest guy on my fight team. And he's 135. And I have some guys that are 170, 185. But by far, if you just ask the team like one at a time, sit them in a room, who's the scariest guy on the team, like it's almost unanimous Miles Johns.
well, he's a tank. Yeah, like you were saying, like how he makes bantamweight. I don't know how he
It's
does it. The guy,
incredible.
he must get around 170, right? Like he has to get about that heavy.
I think when he's like in shape, like 63, 163. I
Okay.
don't know if he wants me putting that out, but yeah, he's fucking. There's times when we're close to the same size. And I'm like, geez, bro.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
he's
Miles is as strong as me. Like honestly, like he's as strong as me, and he definitely hits harder than me. And he has got the physicality of like a top lightweight, in my opinion. He's just in a bantamweight's body. Really, I think he's in a featherweight's body, but for Miles, he is one of the most disciplined professionals I've ever been around, and his mental capacity and spiritual capacity is like for that weight cut is something that's really not just impressive but like inspiring to me. Like when I'm around Miles making bantamweight, it like really rubs off on me. Like he is zero drama. Like, and he's suffering because I like you can like I just know like he's doing a much bigger weight cut than me and I do a big weight cut. So I know where he's at and he's just, doesn't flinch at all. And it's really impressive and inspirational. And honestly, it's an honor just to be a part of a Miles Johns weight cut. It's a shame that like a lot of the younger fighters on the team don't get to actually witness that because I think that it would toughen them up a little bit.
Well, I can tell you, I'm sure you already know this just based on like verbally what he says to you. When I interviewed him the other day, man, he just raved about you. He said nothing but amazing things and how he feels like it was God's plan to align him to be, working with you. So it's kind of cool to hear him talk a little bit about that. I also want to ask you real quick about Garrett Armfield, man. He got robbed of the judges that last fight. Obviously, it was everyone was talking about it online, but what did you tell him after that fight? Because I think a lot of people still were like, yeah, okay, because technically you got the loss, but you really won. Like, is he still in good spirits, even though he didn't officially get a win?
I said, we got robbed, eh? No, I'm kidding. Canadian joke for you. Dog, that was tough. It was tough. I mean, there's an obvious disappointment and there's an obvious financial disappointment. The way the sport is structured is brutal and I really think should change, but I'm not here to go on that sermon. But that was the biggest disappointment with it. We focused on and this somewhat happened to me with the Nicholas Mota fight. You know, I got a win taken away from me and didn't get the win money and all that. And so, pulling from that experience, we chose to focus on the performance itself, the event that took place, and not the judge's decision. And I think that he was very happy with this fight. I was very happy with this fight. He showed great striking. He showed great wrestling, great and improved jujitsu. There were some really high level, very small details that would have to be pointed out to most people that he was doing to maintain those grappling positions and to keep the positions and to get the positions. And so I think that what we saw was an improved Garrett Armfield in every level. You know what I mean? And we had a lot of adversity in the camp, and then we had a great fight. So I think that in that regard, we're very happy with the performance, and that's what we're gonna have to focus on. Although it's not gonna feel good, and that's what I told him. I was like, this is not gonna feel good. It'll, but when you put this karma out in a game like this, if you just stay on track, that the game will kind of bring it back around to you. But that doesn't make today feel any better.
Sure.
But he wasn't good. He was happy with his performance and happy with the fight itself and took no damage. And so that was all good. But it's just a crazy empty feeling I know from the Moda fight that you just can't. It's like you don't feel like the same as a real loss, but you don't get the thing that you would get if you won. So it's almost like robbed is like the perfect word for it because you feel like something was just taken from you. Like you earned this, you had this great performance, and you earned this feeling and this money, and then you don't get them, and it's just tough. It's
Yeah.
tough, man. It's a
Oh,
tough game. This is not for the faint of heart.
I can only imagine, my man. I felt awful for him watching that fight because he clearly won. He was robbed. That's the best
Yeah.
word for it. When do you expect we can see him back in the octagon next? Is that something that's being discussed now?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. I guess my best guess would be March, but I don't know for sure. Nothing has been said yet. So I think the UFC's got to wrap up this year, and then
Mhm.
I expect to hear something from him not too long, but we don't know. But how did you think his performance went? How did you like his fight?
I thought it was great, especially against someone like his opponent, like a young guy that's got a lot of hype coming into the UFC. I think you could kind of like compare it to like Felipe Lima for Miles, right? Like
Hmm.
Felipe is new in the UFC, a lot of hype behind him, and Garrett went in there and did his thing. Like I thought he clearly won.
Yeah.
I was very, very disappointed for him. But again, with the judges, man, like I just never know. I never know where they're gonna go now. Like it's almost like a comical game. Like I'll make bets with my friends. They're like, all right, judge is gonna screw this one up or not, because it happens all the time.
Well, yeah, and like I know that because I coach every weekend, right? But I had I was 0% concerned when they were reading the decision. The coach came up to me after the fight, before the decision was announced, and was like, great fight, guys. We hated this matchup from the beginning. We were worried about this fight. Like, they knew they lost. I knew that. Everyone knew. I was just like, and then they start reading the split decision thing, and I was just like, geez, here we go. And then they called it for the other guy, and then the coach came up and apologized to me.
Wow.
And so, like, this was one of those that was so bad that I just, I wasn't even worried at all, like, going into the scorecards. And then now I just never trust the scorecards, I guess, which is also a shame. It has to get fixed for the sport. Surely the UFC knows that. Surely they're trying to figure out what to do about that. But we have to have, I think, we might be better off with, like, having some, like, traveling judges. Like, we get like 20 certified judges that do UFC, and then you keep them fresh, you keep them rotating. They don't necessarily know the cards they're going to do till 2 weeks out or something, so you can keep it pure. And then that way there's no hometown judges. Like, what the fuck are hometown judges at this level of the sport when half your money's on the line? And this was just a classic example of three Canadian judges scoring it for the Canadian
Yeah.
when the guy lost the fight 30-27.
What I think would make an awful lot of sense is to fix these issues with judging is to get a lot of retired fighters, guys that competed at the highest levels that know what they're looking at, and get them certified to judge, but also make sure that they're not judging a fight where they have a solid relationship with someone. You know
Right,
what I
of
mean?
course.
Make
Yeah.
sure that you're, putting them on cards where it's going to be fair and unbiased. I think that would be the best thing to do, because you guys are the ones that know what you're looking at in there, and you're getting these people that are judging that
Yeah.
I don't know what they're looking at nowadays. It's pretty frustrating.
Well, me either, actually. It's the only sport in the world where you don't know the credential, you don't know the scoring criteria. You don't actually know how to score. You don't actually know what the score is in between rounds. Like in soccer, you look at the scoreboard, there's the score. Like, even jujitsu is like that. You
Yeah.
look at the scoreboard, there's the score. It's defined on a piece of paper what scores what. It's like, surely we can get something closer to that in MMA. I know MMA is more complicated, but I think I think they should have the judges that aren't judging. I think there should be 5 to 7 judges at every event, and they just rotate from the judges' chairs into the octagon and to break. And they just, like, why do we not have like the top judges that, or the top referees that you see in the UFC? I mean, the UFC don't trust no freaking hometown rookie judge in a championship title fight. No, they get Herb Dean.
Yeah.
But then in the judging chairs, which is almost more important, it's like whoever.
Yeah.
It's like hometown guy. Why do we not have these amazing judges that really know the sport and train rotate out? Why, that would make the most sense for me, because they're the most qualified, and they're qualified right now.
And open scoring too wouldn't hurt. That way you guys know what you might need to do if you're
Yes,
going
we
into
have
the
that in
third round.
Kansas. We have that in the state I live in. So for a lot of our local fights, we do have open scoring, and it's great. Although
Yeah.
it can be really frustrating when you watch yourself get robbed live time, but you still have to stay focused on trying. The fuck we won that round. You're looking at it. You're trying to look at the judges and figure out which
Yeah.
one did it.
Yeah. Which one?
Which one of you motherfuckers did that? But and to another point about having the referees be the judges and rotate through, is that would solve the problem of the bias from having trained with them too, because the referees are already in there with all these guys anyway, so they obviously don't have biases just naturally. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm sure it'll get fixed, but I doubt it gets fixed in my career. So I'm trying to just dominate. You got to dominate people.
Yeah. So a perfect segue to go back to Moises here. I mean, with the problems with judging, do you feel like, this is a fight where you really, the importance of dominating and winning round to round, it's even more important? Because like you were saying, you guys are similar with your skill sets. Like what ultimately, like, how do you see the fight playing out?
Well, it's important to me to dominate him, not to secure a judge's win, but it's important to me to dominate him for myself. Like, Thiago's good. I don't think he's championship level. I'm at my complete peak right now. I'm about as good as I can get myself. I've been doing this for a long time, and I expect myself to dominate Thiago. I'll be very frustrated if I don't. I don't train the way I train for the amount of time I've done it, study the way I've done, sacrifice what I have. I haven't come all the way here for anything looking average. And um, I think that I matured really slow in this game, but I'm going to mature very dense. So it's like, me saying all that is like, but it's like, maybe I haven't gone that far yet, really. But I feel like all of my reps are compounding and all of my sacrifices and everything I've done behind closed doors. It was all done intention. It's been done for well over a decade with consistency. I have mapped out what I'm doing, and now I'm on a 3 fight win streak in the UFC, and I'm peaking with my competitive maturity. I'm peaking with my technical maturity. I'm peaking with my physicality and my physical maturity, and I'm peaking with my desire to do it. A lot of my fighting career, I viewed myself just as a coach. I was just fighting for my own spiritual journey, but then also to like, I didn't want to be like a theory based coach. I wanted to be a battle tested coach. I wanted to really understand what I was talking about. But after I beat Rajabov, like my brain just changed to like, oh, I'm on a run. I beat 3 dudes in a row, and I got past that crazy caveman monster dude they found from wherever the fuck, like whoever. Like I recommend every lightweight on the roster get to share the octagon with Loic Rajabov because it'll make a man out of all of them. You know, so hopefully some more guys can share that experience. But after I beat Loic and I came out of that on a win streak and I'm in my physical prime and I'm healthy, I'm like, man, I've put a lot into this and a lot more than what has shown. And so now I'm here to show it. And this is my time to make, the next couple of years is my time to really do the work that I'm going to do and tell the story that I was telling all along. And Thiago's a perfect matchup. It's great not to have a brawler. I fought 2 brawlers in a row. It's great to have another technical guy to fight with and to show my skills. And I'm preparing to dominate him. I don't want anything. It took Islam Makhachev 4 rounds to get him out of there. I'm gonna get him out in less.
I love it, man. I don't want to wish the year away, because I'm looking forward to some fights this coming weekend and obviously UFC Tampa, but I'm really looking forward to watching you get back in there January the
Thank you,
11th,
brother.
2025. Trey, it's always great to talk to you, my man. Before we do get out of here, though, I did want to ask you real quick if you give me a couple predictions for UFC 310 this weekend. Do you think Pantoja retains his belt, or are you going with Asakura and then also Shavkat and Ian Gary?
I'm gonna go with Shabkat for sure on that one. On the title fight, honestly, the Japanese dude hasn't fought in the UFC, right?
Correct.
I haven't done any homework on him. That's an interesting situation to have a guy from outside of the UFC come in straight into the title fight. I'll be very curious to see how that goes. But the Japanese fighters are doing great right now, man. They're really showing a high level of MMA and they're grappling and they're striking and putting it together. And of course, they come from a culture of that warrior spirit. And I've been excited to watch the Japanese fighters do their thing. As somebody who is came up through the traditional martial arts, it's awesome for me to see Japan have like a reemergence in modern martial arts. Um, but I'm not educated enough in that matchup. But I'll be curious to see, and I'm interested to kind of understand what that says about the flyweight division. Is like that they're out of dudes to fight this guy, so they're bringing a guy straight into the title fight. But I think it's cool to mix it up and get some of these guys over here, and hopefully the Japanese market growing brings the UFC to Japan a couple of times, and I get out of the Apex and I get to live, get one of my complete dreams and honors of my life would be to fight in Japan. That nothing would mean more to me, I think, in martial arts than to win a fight in Japan and eat some freaking sushi in Japan right after the fight would just be like the coolest thing ever for me. So as the Japanese market is growing and that potential happens, I need to make sure that I'm growing my own stock in the UFC so that if the two converge before I'm too old, I can get myself in a fight in Japan and maybe even get to fight a Japanese fighter.
Well, I hope it happens for you, my man. I know the future is bright for you. And again, man, always great to chat with you. If there's anything you want to plug or anyone you want to thank before we get out of here today, floor is yours.
Just Marathon MMA, brother. Just you can follow me, Marathon underscore MMA on Instagram. And you can follow the gym and everything we're doing there and MMA and Jiu Jitsu, Marathon MMA underscore Academy.